If you've been interested in mental health and more specifically in psychedelics over the past couple of years, then you're going to love this interview with Todd Shapiro of Light Holland. That's because, as most of you know, over the past few years, people, doctors alike, have been looking for more mental health options beyond traditional pharma. And some types of psychedelic drugs, like psilocybin, have shown great promise as therapies for trauma, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And more than just a concept or an idea, the market for psychedelics is expected, depending on where you look, is expected to grow from about 5 billion right now to 12 billion just before the end of the decade. That's 140% growth. That's serious business. And that's where Light Holland comes in, because they're aiming to become the biggest brand of therapeutic psilocybin products in the world, with a vision to make Magic Truffles a globally recognized name. Now, more than just lip service, because we know we live in a world of pretenders where everyone's trying to capitalize on a trend and say, hey, look at me too. But the company isn't just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. Their annual revenues for the year ended March 31st, 3.95 million, up 70%. Those are both serious numbers. Gross profit, 1.7 million, up 176%. Guys, that's execution. That's not talking the talk, that's walking the walk. And in the quarter that just ended June 30th, same continuation of success. Revenue up 53%, gross profits up 80%. And they're expecting, we're going to talk about this, a revenue run rate of $16 to $17 million per year with strong profit margins and cash flows. So we're going to talk about that. They're accomplishing all this through great business from the Netherlands to Canada. And the Netherlands, they got a fully integrated, fully vertically integration of their premium brand of psilocybin truffles, from production to distribution to retail, even to e-commerce. So it's amazing what they've done here. Premium brands, white label brands, and a wholesale business that's one of the most recognized and trusted distribution companies in the Netherlands. In North America, they've had other great success, including a major breakthrough in the world of psychedelics with the successful arrival of their psilocybin truffles in Canada. I mean, it's still not legalized yet here, I don't think. We're going to hear more about that from Todd. But they've introduced it. And in the meantime, while they're waiting for legalization and all that, they've got this great functional mushrooms and home grow kits business that's growing. And they've done it with some great names beside them, including the likes of Wiz Khalifa and even Tony Clement. We're going to talk about him, who just got added to the advisory board. Todd, I know it's a mouthful, but you guys doing so many great things. Welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the last time I was here, I had way less grays in my beard, I'm noticing. I think I had, much cleaner eyes looking. They weren't as, bag filled. But, part of that reason, I guess, being weathered is because we are working hard and my whole team's weathered. It's not just me, but all we're trying to do is create shareholder value every single day.
Well, look, I read off some of the numbers and you're doing it, because there was a time when, there's George Com Psychedelics. Everyone tried to be a psychedelics company because, let's face it, they want to capitalize on the stock promotes and things like that. But very few companies have remained that are doing real things. You guys are doing it. And I want to talk about some of that in a second. But before we get to some of the trip details, a lot of people still are not familiar with psychedelics and what the macro. So if you don't mind, give us maybe 60-second overview of the macro view of psychedelics. Legalization, how's that look like? Acceptance with people, is that growing? How's the big macro vision look like for psychedelics?
Yeah, it's a good point. Sometimes we're too close to it, right? So we sort of forget that there's a lot of people out there that still don't even know what psychedelics are, don't even understand where the sector's going. They still think to the 60s and, peace and love and going to Grateful Dead shows and stuff. The truth is this. We are pretty insular, meaning we know what's going on our front. I don't necessarily, as the CEO of this company, pay attention to other companies and what they're doing in the biotech space. So in the biotech, big pharma kind of space, I know that there are those like the Compasses and other big companies that are looking to one day patent psychedelics to tweak a molecule and then to obviously bring that as a new form of an SSRI or some sort of medication. And by the way, I think that's great. If some of these big companies can figure out a way to help with mental health one day through psychedelics and through the science of psychedelics, that's tremendous. For me, what I think would be just as functional, just as important, and what the company stands for, Light Holland, and what we're completely aligned with, is how do we get naturally occurring mushrooms or truffles with psilocybin and psilocin into the hands of those that need it now. This isn't something we need to go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, etc. So on that front, yes, there are some progression happening, which is really good. Australia is talking about how they are opening up their doors for potential legal magic mushroom use. There's talks even about, like, Senator Wiener in California, who's talking about first with decrim and where does that go. So we're starting to see Oregon opening up, and there's still confusion around it, though, which is part of the reason why us at Red Light Holland are just taking our time to learn from these regulatory processes to try to help with our data that we do collect from a legal framework in the Netherlands. And then back to Canada, I will say there is the SAP program, which is the Special Access Program, which is sort of a graduate of the Exemption 56 program. And now we're starting to see the Senate, for example, the Senate Subcommittee of Veterans Affairs just talked about the need, again, for now.
Wow.
Psychedelics and magic mushrooms specifically to help veterans, to help those with post-traumatic stress disorder. If you think of what our first emergency response responders have gone through, it's a lot. And we want to help now. What are we waiting for? So a lot of catalysts we think are coming, but we can't concretely say this date, this time frame, and it's going to happen for sure. But we do know that we're going to align ourselves and advocate for it as much as we can.
And those catalysts are happening because people are seeing real results, right? I've seen some studies come out that have had unbelievable results on PTSD, on addiction, right? So it's almost like the thing speaks for itself. Now it's just a case of, are we over that hump, Todd? Do you think we're over that hump where the people believe and understand how helpful psilocybin and it can be, and magic mushrooms can be, and now it's just a case of how do we work it in legally and get it introduced? Is that, you think we're there?
Yeah, it's interesting when you say, George, over the hump. By the way, thanks for having me. I didn't even thank you for having me on. So thank you for having me on. I question this entire world in terms of, are we over the hump in anything? Meaning, I'd like to think that the circle of people I surround myself with are very progressive, are very open to new forms of naturally occurring medication, are open to the data that has come in and reading it. But when you look at the atrocities on this planet, I start to wonder still, are there people that even know that this probably could be the actual thing? And yes, it's conjectural, and yes, maybe it's just me spewing off my mouth, but that could bring people closer together. So I don't think we're over the hump, because I still think there's billions of people that would stereotype, have a stigma, that wouldn't believe that psychedelics could be the healing power that we need. With that being said, are there a more accurate study and focus groups of people that get this stuff? Without a doubt. And these are really important people, because you have medical doctors. For instance, we just had a medical doctor, George, join our advisory board, Dr. Taras Naherny. He's an amazing individual. He's done the TheraSil protocol. He is a doctor that really believes in other forms of medication, not just traditional ones backed by science. He still thinks, obviously, there's a long way to go, and that's part of the stuff we're doing that we can talk about with testing. But in terms of like where his spirit is and where his head is doctors should not just be focused on one narrow avenue. If there's other avenues and other streams that can help people, then we need to focus on those too. So, we're grateful. This is a doctor at MedCan, by the way. It's not like just, he was a family doctor forever. So we're really pleased about that. So if the medical community is getting involved, then I'd like to think we're slowly getting there.
Yeah, and I'm actually impressed with the fact that you said a member of the Canadian Senate. I mean, I don't think there's a more conservative, not politically, I'm talking just character-wise, more conservative group of people out there than Canadian senators. So if you got a Canadian senator saying, hey, I think we need to introduce this for our military, that's saying something, right?
George, I don't, back to the world, man, and sorry to make it about the world, but
sure,
I'm so emotional lately. So many people I know are emotional lately. And how do I relate this back to veterans? Like, think of the things these individuals who protect our freedoms have seen, have gone through, that live with. And the idea that, we're scrolling through Twitter and Instagram and seeing lots of things that even the regular person shouldn't see via a screen, let alone see some of this stuff in combat. and we're not doing whatever we can to help them now. Look at, like, even in LA County, they just talked about the other day how 4 police officers sadly killed themselves within a 24-hour period. 4 in 24 hours. If that doesn't bring emotion to people, and we start to wonder, could they have been helped? Could psychedelics potentially have been part of that cause? And I don't want to exploit a terrible situation, by the way, but you mentioned it. Studies are showing that it does help with post-traumatic stress disorder, and the time is now. We should not, as governments, as regulators, and publicly traded CEOs and companies and people who use, we can't not talk about this stuff. The conversation cannot stop, because we need to help people, because it's a scary world out there.
Well, let's have that conversation, because look, you've always been a guy. You're young, you're energetic, you've got
Not that
you got
young.
your stuff
I'm not
together.
that. I'm 50. I'm 50. I'm not that young.
But you're going through, let's face it, you're going through some trauma right now, right? With what's going on in the Middle East, and that impact on the Jewish community, on Israelis. Are you finding that? And the reason I brought that all up about what you were like, over the years I've known you, is, are you having to, maybe rely a little more on your product in order to help you through the kind of anxiety that you're going through, given what's transpired in the last 30 days?
I absolutely wish that my product was legal here in Canada. You know, we have a product in the Netherlands, the iMicrodose or the Maca products, our homegrown magic truffles that are now lab tested, that I have used in the Netherlands. I haven't been back to the Netherlands. It's part of kind of company budgeting. We're being very careful with our spend. Every time we go away, it's an extra expense on the company. So a lot of this Zoom stuff with our team over there, but I need it now more than ever. It has been an extraordinarily difficult time, and for a lot of people. I mean, I don't want to make this only about me, but in particular, as we know, we had this public firing of a lady who was supporting attacks at the time. That the thing went completely viral. Multiples of like if not a billion views collectively, 900 million views. Media outlets picking up, people sending me death threats, people taking pictures of my daughter, saying we're going to do to her what was done to others.
Come on, Todd. You can't tell me that's actually happening. I didn't realize that that's happening to you.
Oh, Mike, luckily it's slowed, it's tapered off. Some of it's filtered out. I maybe shouldn't be bringing it up, but you asked a question to me. Would I like to have used my product to help me get through that time? Because I was doing my best to keep it together for my family. And while I'm running, this company, and we have an incredible loyal team, and but also on the other end, just a young kids, 4 and 8, the chaos of everyday life. I would love to have my product. And anecdotally from the past, I can speak about it, how beneficial it is. The other thing, and I say this in every interview I've done for 3 years, but I feel like it never gets old. All people have to do is Google anecdotal experiences of people microdosing psilocybin. And the tens of thousands of results that you will get of people. There's a new group on Facebook called Microdosing Moms, how beneficial it's them as mothers, and they're career oriented, and they're amazing ladies, and yet they're dealing with the home life and tough marriages at times, and how much microdosing has helped them. This is a common theme. And why are we ignoring common themes, especially, George? And again, it's something I say all the time. It's something that comes from the earth. Like, maybe whatever person you believe in up there, or thing, or spiritual leader, maybe there's a reason. Like, maybe there's and we're letting it. We're not paying enough attention to it. And my job is, I've given up, dude. I'm just going to bring as much attention to it as possible. I used to be careful what I said. The time is now. We need to be paying attention to psilocybin and the ingredients within magic mushrooms, and use responsibly, because read those anecdotal studies. Essentially, they're people just talking about it. Put them all together. It's a big phase 3 study, and ultimately people are being helped with this. And so, sorry, my phone.
I can tell you, that's okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you, Todd, anecdotally, that I had a client whose life turned around because of psychedelics, and I have a client whose mom's life turned around. In fact, he was crying when I was talking to him about it, because he couldn't believe the benefit it was. So if we're talking to George out there, or Mary right there, who's saying, man, I am going through a tough time and I don't know what to do. And this, let's face it, Todd, this decade, starting with 2020, started with the Australian fires. We thought that was terrible. Look where we are now. We got wars in Ukraine, the Middle East. big problems going on. So it's been very taxing on the mental health of people. Forget about the fact that you throw COVID in the middle of all that and all bets are off. So if John or Mary are listening at home right now, right? How do they expose themselves to this? How do they potentially find a way to get psilocybin, psychedelics into their life?
Yeah, and just to comment on I sort of make a joke. I try to be funny. I used to be funny. I'm not so funny anymore. That's what happens when you take a company public. But if you think about, we're from the Toronto area, like that 2019 when the Raptors won the championship, that if you think of a stock chart, that was like the peak, especially in this area of the world. Like there's this huge celebration.
We were loving life.
Going nuts. Before COVID, there weren't many wars that were being publicized at the time. It was all Trump, Trump, Trump. That was the only thing in the news. And then the parade, and then COVID, and then all this stuff you spoke about, and then like this, it's just the world stock chart's gone down. And so how do people get it? Listen, I can't really sit here and promote competitors. When I say competitors, gray market, illegal competitors. But
No,
we're
absolutely
seeing,
not.
but I'll just say it. And I think it helps with part of the catalyst in the first question is in Canada, we are seeing copious amounts of retail shops pop up. Fungi, shroomies, all these kind of shops. They all got like, there's another one that was like 6 mushrooms or something. And people are just going in there. And like they used to do with cannabis, they're buying magic mushrooms and they're using them. And so I can't say go into those shops and get it because they could be busted at any point and stuff. But people are going there. I also know, like personally, a couple of buddies, quite candidly, they're ordering online products of magic mushrooms and they're getting them delivered by Canada Post. So like, where's the disconnect here? Canada Post is bringing it to your door, but yet I have to go through every single legal opinion, every single careful psilocybin import permit. I have to go through all this rigorous testing, and we still aren't sure when we can get our products to people to use. I will say,
you want to use in a therapeutic world, right, Todd? Your products are aimed for a therapeutic world where George used it with the help of a medical professional who makes sure I get the right microdose and I go through all the proper procedures, right? That's more what your focus is on, especially here. I mean, not so much in the Netherlands. I know there it's more the rec market and those kind of things.
Really though, and sorry to interrupt you because it's really interesting. In the Netherlands, yes, it's been sold like fireworks for the last however many years. We want to make sure that we're doing it responsibly. So we have telecounseling support set up. You can scan any product of ours that you buy. You scan your barcode. It can set you up with a telecounseling appointment, and he can walk you through. Our therapist, Jeff Hamburg, can walk you through the process. We have apps that track users' data if they want to provide us with their data. It's personal. It's privacy first. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want to learn, and we presented to the Oregon Senate when they were talking about and pushed through their bill. We want to make sure we're doing it properly. And what that leads back to is, yes, I think regulators should come in and figure out what is this next maybe approach that's not quite rec and it's not quite medical, and it's some sort of facilitator based. Maybe one day you walk into a shop and you just got to show them your driver's license. You get 1 pill a day, you wait 20 minutes, there's no contraindications. They then let you leave, but like you would a cup of coffee. That's what you do for a cup of coffee. You spend 20 minutes a day to get your caffeine, to get your day going. Why not a microdose? So I think there's a delicate balance around it. And this is part of the stuff that we as a team at Red Light Holland, and we have this wonderful lady, Shashkas on staff, our CTIO, who's really putting through and putting forward these different paths to proper usage. And that's what we're most proud of, because it's data collection. It's our own IP. We even, through that company that we were acquired of her, so I get excited, I forget of all the things we've done. And this just popped in my head. We got a patent on through Radix Motion that if therapists ever are able to prescribe magic mushrooms, which in some areas, like Oregon now, they're starting to be able to do, what we're learning is that patients are also going in a little fearful. One, kind of going with a stranger, and you're going deep into your soul, taking
Me too. I'd probably have a little bit.
Yeah, you could have but some are going deep and taking big hero doses, as they call them, but then they don't trust the therapist. There's been reports of abusive therapists, sadly, in the past. So we've created a patent now on body metric movement data with AI. And I know AI is a buzzword, but this is actually AI. Like it's not just a buzz press release. knowing that if certain movements of a doctor are going too close to that patient, that's alarming at that point. A bell will ring off, and then people can feel safe and secure in those environments of these therapeutic sessions. Also, the reason people are like, why don't they just get filmed? People are scared of getting filmed. They're scared, will that track a record for insurance claims that might go against them one day because they were videotaped under this psychosis state? So we're really trying to mitigate and facilitate ways to make sure that if and when regulated, that it is done with as much responsibility as possible. And we're quite proud at Red Light Holland for being a self-regulatory company.
Yeah, and by the way, because you touched on it there, I love the fact that, on the one hand, you're growing mushrooms from the ground, almost like farmers, but you've got telecounseling, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, which speaks to, Todd, that you guys have thought about this industry from soup to nuts, from A to Z, right? You're not just a one-trick pony. So hats off to you guys that, to be able to think of all of that, because you need that entire system in order to be successful.
Mom, did you hear that? My ADHD as a child is finally paying off, doing a bunch of different things at once and putting it all together. We're just trying to be creative. And while we're being creative, George, we're really, really making a conscious effort of focusing on revenues, which obviously focuses most importantly for that revenue generation and then shareholder value. And secondly, the money we invest into the company, how carefully are we using that burn to ensure that this is actually makes sense? Helping therapy makes sense. Helping with data collection, the stuff that you don't see immediate returns on your return on investment makes sense though. Good marketing, good branding makes sense. So we're really, really doing our best to preserve that burn. Our quarterly sort of growth speaks for itself, where I think, yep, year over year quarter growth, I think we've always achieved better from the quarter prior year in terms of revenue and burn. And typically most quarters are better at revenue and also decreasing that burn. So, and last reported 17.5 million in the bank. So I'd like to think that as a company, we're leading the pack. That's, I used to be careful about saying that, but we have been so cautious and careful, and I'm really proud of our team for rolling up the sleeves, getting in the mud, and every one of us are doing 8 jobs.
Yeah, and I read off the numbers earlier, so I won't read them off again. Financial, great success, right? And it's very difficult in a new market like this where you don't even have legal markets to really work off of, right? We don't operate. I'm an entrepreneur. I've never had to operate in that environment. What I want to ask you was beyond the numbers. I'm going to read this off. You guys are expecting to get to a revenue run rate of $16 to $17 million per year with strong margins and cash flows. Where does that come from? Is it primarily from the therapeutic side, or is it also from, you got this great business going in North America with the shiitake mushrooms and putting all the infrastructure in place? How and when do you guys think you might get there?
Yeah, and I hope not to sound like a broken record to those who've watched me in interviews before, but for those who are new to Red Light Holland, we pivoted over a couple of years ago. We've been publicly traded now for 3.5. Actually, like just around now, I formed a company. It was private. I started doing my raise just before COVID. It was crazy. It's funny, we're 4 years in now, but we pivoted about 2.5 years ago because we were worried about the catalysts that were few and far between within psychedelics. And how this relates to your question, George, is we partnered with mushroom farmers, and not just like small mushroom farmers. We partnered with Mike Medeiros, go look him up, Carlton Mushroom Farms. In fact, it's funny, potential future prime minister, politics aside, I don't care, but he's the conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. He was doing a speech yesterday and he talked about the farm tax, and he talked about a farmer in his riding and how, this farm tax is very, very tough. And he's like, axe the tax. We got to axe the tax. And the farmer he was relating to was Mike Medeiros, who is our partner at AEM Farms. This isn't like a small time farmer. Carlton Mushroom Farms, and they're a private company. So I won't tell you what their production numbers are, and I won't tell you what their revenues are, but they're tremendous. He's building.
They're big enough for the leader of the opposition to be mentioning them as an example.
Exactly. And then our other partners, Nick Furlano and Stephen Rody from F&R Mushroom Farms and from Holborn Mushroom Farms are the ones that have helped us form AEM Mushroom Farms. And within, 2 years, we have an operational mushroom farm in New Brunswick that is selling shiitake mushrooms to 47 farm boys to restaurants, etc. And these are like the highest quality mushrooms you're going to get in all of Canada in terms of the exotic, legal, edible mushrooms. And we then have put our heads together. Just over a year ago, we bought land in Cavan Monaghan near Peterborough. It's 100 acres. And we are building a 70 to 75,000 square foot mushroom farm, state of the art. I won't tell you where it's designed by because there's only one like it in the world, and we're emulating working with one of the consultants who built this exotic mushroom farm. So this isn't for psychedelics, and this will be a massive production for us in terms of farming mushrooms. And we're very excited. We're working with the township. I can say very openly that we are, people are like wondering when we're getting our permits. We have no fear we're not getting the permits. We're just still going back and forth with the township. I don't know. I don't think this is material. Ironically, the individual
standard permitting stuff, standard permitting.
Yeah,
stuff.
no, but the funny thing is the individual at the township who's going over our stuff, the engineer there, he was sick for a bit and then on vacation when our permit got submitted. So even though we submitted it, people thought it would like happen overnight who are investors and are savvy. And there's just a matter of circumstances that delayed it a little bit. But like we foresee, and I'm confident in saying this, we foresee zero issues getting these permits for what we're doing. And we're very excited to get shovels into the ground. And we've already started a little bits of road work and just clearing some things. But we are on track to still have this facility done next year. And meaning it's a prefab facility. So a lot of the work actually gets done and then just shipped in. And this is going to be a big source of our revenue that we've given guidance on quite candidly. And always do your financial due diligence, and it is forward looking. But sure, we're very excited to get this farm built.
And am I right when I said in the intro that that's great that you're doing that? And I know we got about 4 minutes left, so I'm going to ask you some really quick fire. But
can we not just talk for an hour?
Oh no, I can go. I know, just in case you have to go, I can keep on going.
Fine. I'm fine. I like, you got my juices going. I miss this stuff. I like it.
Beautiful. The likes of Maderos, I'm guessing here, but are they partnering with you because they see that you could potentially build a massive value added business on top of what they're doing right now, if and when hopefully, psilocybin magic mushrooms get legalized or become decriminalized? Is that what they're seeing?
Yeah, I'm always careful to speak on behalf of people, but specifically farmers. They're a tough bunch. and yeah, you never want to rub a farmer the wrong way. They're the biggest salt of the earth grinders, real business people you're ever going to meet in your life. There's no phony bullshit pump and dump stuff with them at all. None of that. But I will say, it's kind of like working with the mafia, to be honest. They're the best. But they
Yellowstone, baby.
They're old school. At the core of it, George, and we're all at some point we all, I think, grow up and evolve and just want better results for human beings. Like, we're always driven on material at first, and who's the pretty girl or the good looking dude or the pretty girl we're gonna girls and the whatever popular person. And then you wake up and you realize all that shit doesn't fucking matter. Sorry for swearing. And
wow. Real,
and you want to take care of humankind. And these farmers see us as a vehicle to really helping, because that's where we'll speak on behalf of them. They want to help people. They not only believe in the benefits of mushrooms, but they clearly believe in the benefits of psychedelics and psilocybin based mushrooms. So, we had a great partnership because it's like, we can do that without maybe jeopardizing a family name of their family run businesses and things. And they're in every produce, they're in every, these guys are everywhere across Canada and into the United States, which, by the way, is part of the reason why we're comfortable in giving guidance for the other farm we're building, because of all their huge, strong connections. So really at the heart of it, what I will say, and I already said it, is that everyone's just here to be a part of positive change.
Well, and I want to talk about that for a second, because the beauty, so I participated in that when you said earlier, 3.5 years ago, I participated in that raise. And one thing I loved about TRIP, I always call it TRIP because just faster to say than Red Light Holland, right? But what I love about Red Light Holland is that you got this double benefit that comes out of it. On the one hand, you can invest in a potentially explosive paradigm shifting industry. And within that, if Red Light's able to, execute, then it has that same parabolic growth. Great. But then you also have that, if Todd and his team can pull this off, I'm also a part of just making the world and society a better place, because there are real people suffering trauma who need this. And if they get this, their lives are better, their families' lives are better. And that's got to be a great thing. Like Agoracom can't claim that. We don't make the world a better place. I mean, we help people discover it. Great. I'm proud of that. But we don't have what you have, right? How big of a driver is that for you and your partners?
I'm going to get emotional. Um, the idea that we have a horse in the race, and again, I think we're leading the pack in terms of like this sort of micro cap, small cap, and responsible with our money. But like when in life, like, do you have an opportunity to be a part of a legacy? Like maybe in sport, maybe if you create some crazy tech, whatever. And weirdly, we have a chance, and it is just a chance. Always do your due diligence, all this kind of stuff. But we're going to die trying, basically, to make a difference in this world that we've never seen before. And I can't make the medical claims, but you can go and read the stuff we talked about earlier, the anecdotal studies, everything, and all the data that's coming out now, John Hopkins, et cetera. Johns Hopkins or John, I always forget.
Hopkins.
Yeah, it's John.
It's Johns Hopkins. Yeah.
I know there's plural. So it's weird though for me to say that, because I'm not a pioneer. I'm not a guy who got banned from studying it in the 70s when the war on drugs came on and everything. I'm just passionate because I see it help people. So weirdly, that we at Red Light have a chance to be a part of a legacy if we do this right, with one of the oldest forms of help that this planet has been provided, meaning like we just want to stop the criminalization of nature. Like we've criminalized nature here, and we want to be on the forefront of telling people that hopefully, more and more and more and more evidence will prove that this can help. And that's what we want to get to. So I'm proud to put a voice to that, and so is our team.
And I got to tell you, if I was sitting in your seat, one thing I would do, I know I'm like this, I like to tally stuff. I start thinking, okay, what's my back of the napkin math in terms of how successful I think the company's going to be? Okay, that's part one. But the deeper thing I'd want to get to is, okay, if I can get this many microdoses out there, I would almost create a counting device saying, how many lives am I going to impact if I achieve my business goals? I think that would be a really cool thing to see. I don't know if and I'm sure it's mathematically possible, right? But if you figure that every life that you impact through your product also impacts the lives of 2.8 people around them, because you got mothers, fathers, spouses, children, whatever the case may be, maybe it's 5.5. Man, you're talking about millions, potentially tens of millions of lives that are going to change for the eternity of time, because now you put George on this trajectory and you took him off of this trajectory. Have you ever thought about it that way, in terms of just counting up? There's counting up dollars and profits, and there's counting up lives, happiness.
I have now, and I hadn't really thought about it in terms of that kind of potential numbers. And again, I got to be clear, I can't make medical claims, but just read.
Yeah,
it's like, and I love your thought. I love how deep it is. It's almost like we're doing microdosing right now, George, and sitting at a campfire and having these discussions. I love it because, my mind as a creative guy thinks to the Golden Archers and the amount of Big Macs served in the day. But like, was that really a good thing? Like, is that something to brag about? We're making people obese. I don't know if that's a great thing to brag about. This would be a really interesting ticker symbol to watch, support, help. And by the way, can that then help people with addiction problems, with opioid overdoses, with alcohol problems? Because we're starting to learn through studies how psychedelics can also help decrease other usage of things that are very harmful. So this could be an astronomical number. I used to be a creative guy, and then I took a company public, and it just wiped all my creativity and artsy.
And you had a board and auditors on top of you, and regulators who took all that away from you.
They've crushed me. But listen, that's a really beautiful way to look at it. And I'm sure there'll be multiple companies who will be a part of that big number too. And that's the goal, because if a lot of companies are successful in this sector, at the end of the day, that means we're helping humans, and that's where we want to be.
By the way, so going back to what you said 30 seconds ago, look, man, you've always been a great free spirit. Go Elon Musk if you have to. At some point, I think Elon Musk said, forget my damn board, forget the damn regulators. It's not like I'm breaking the law or stealing money out of a piggy bank. I just want to freaking express to the world what I'm thinking. And if it gets me in trouble, I don't care anymore. I gotta let loose. And I think Todd Shapiro has to be let loose. I'm just gonna throw that in as a side.
It means a lot, and I feel like I've held myself back. Even my board has encouraged me to be a little bit more me from the past when I used to work in media. But you know, I'm careful. Like, listen, the stock's at an all-time low, so that's not an easy thing to swallow at night, right? Like I'm the leader of this stock, and I'm crushed that I don't see better value for what we're doing. I do like to think, and a lot of those who get it say to me, hey, if those are those bull run days, some of those announcements you're putting out would have like increased the microcap company, especially in like they did in cannabis, 50% that day. You would have maybe have seen that. Head down, you've got cash. You know, some guys on Bay Street still call me the rookie of the year for what I've done and jumped in there. So yeah, I want to let loose, but I'm careful because I don't want to seem overly confident. I want to make sure that like my joyful nature and the fun side of me isn't misconstrued as being a jackass and not taking this company seriously. But I'm trying to balance it more because I also got to have more fun in life, and I want investors to have fun. And I love it, George. If we can get passionate investors the way a Tesla had, and they bought Tesla and bought Tesla stock, and the way, Apple, they bought Apple products and they bought Apple stock. Like, you're right. If we can get those passion investors, and maybe if they can live through some of that passion beyond me, or through me, sorry, beyond like, financial advisor, number data collection stuff on investing. Maybe that will be neat. And people will be like, hey, I'm ready to just dive in and for a little bit, I'm comfortable with this risk because it is microcap, but because I believe in the bigger picture. So, of course, I can't endorse that as a CEO. I'm not a financial advisor, but that would be neat to think that maybe that could happen.
Yeah, and Todd, by the way, I'm going to tell you something. Letting loose doesn't mean you're coming on with me and saying, "So we're kicking ass here and there and there. We're looking great, and we're gonna." No, I think letting loose is we're doing this thing in Peterborough. We're doing this thing in New Brunswick. We're doing this over here. Here's some of the challenges we have. This may turn to be a problem, but you let loose on all of it. And I think that's how you get investors. That's why investors love Elon Musk, and why the other day, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, 100 Tesla owners got together in a parking lot, put their cars in this configuration, played this music because all the Teslas were going to the music. The lights were going off to the music. That's what you want to create. And I think you do that by just being open and honest about all parts of the business. And I think I just wanted to throw that because there's not enough guys like you who are doing that. They're listening to their board and their lawyers, and that's not the way to do it in the small cap, micro cap world.
Well, listen, I like having a bit of a voice, but I'll be cautious. But that's neat. Listen, at the end of the day, wouldn't it be neat to have like 100 people together legally in the Netherlands, and we have a big ceremony together? Like that would be, and maybe we're wearing red light shirts. The other thing I don't even know, I don't even know if red light's the proper name going forward either. Like we're so mushroom oriented now. So these are the other things that I'm thinking about. Like, is that a detriment to new investors coming in? Do they think it's lowbrow? At the time, it really stood for a lot because A, we were only really focused on magic truffles where you could do it in the Netherlands. B, the tie-in between Red Light and our company it really was about the sex work industry, where you had protections, regulations put into place. You had workers who are proud of what they did. They paid taxes on what they do. Like it was about regulating an industry that was known as not being regulated. And that's what, we want to do with our industry. That's where Red Light came from, not just to be like, oh, red light, like, capitalize on that.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But now, being this mushroom coalition, so to speak, that's what I feel like we're such an everything mushroom and wellness company. So all these thoughts are going through my head, George.
Well, I'll give you license on Agora truffles, because Agora is the ancient Greek marketplace, right? The marketplace. So you're the truffle marketplace. So if you want to create Agora truffle and we do a joint venture,
I love it. I love it. Let's get it. We'll get it. No. You'll be the dealer for Bay Street, legal one day.
We're all Greeks. We're all Greeks. You come into a Greek restaurant, you get a gyro souvlaki, and you get some magic mushrooms to go home with you at the same time, right?
How is Greece doing? How's the Greece economy doing now? Is it doing okay?
The Greeks went through their catharsis after their complete debacle, which was self-inflicted. They did it themselves. They went through a complete debacle, and now I was there for 3.5 weeks in August, and it's just Todd, they're in that perfect place. They're not such a capitalistic society that they've sold out all their values, because we know that's what happens. But they're not so, just developing that they don't have enough of it. They're right in that middle sweet spot where they're happy to what they have, and the things are going great. So who knows? Maybe we'll do something in Greece as well together someday.
I used to joke that the part of the reason why their economy went broke is they just put way too much feta cheese on those salads. Like you'd get like the whole.
That's
Like,
me.
yeah, it's not cheap
That's
feta cheese.
me.
Greece is beautiful. I've been to many of the islands in Greece. I haven't been in a while, but it is a beautiful country and a beautiful nation. Yeah, man. Mushrooms hopefully will be everywhere. It'll be interesting as time continues, as a few catalysts here and there pop up to see what other governments might do. And I guess we're going all over the place, and I'm trying to segue it back into business for people who are investors and maybe want to know. But we are really proud on at least getting these psilocybin import licenses from Health Canada. We're working with a partner in Montreal, and Seacrest Laboratories. We just got our latest rounds of testing, the 4-month stability test after the rigorous test before that of heavy metals and pesticides, et cetera. And the goal is obviously creating these homogenized capsules that can one day be supplied. And this is where I'll say back to the world and everything, how sort of lucky we are in perspective. Like if we can give back to these veterans at some point, we would love to even donate mushrooms to veterans that we've gotten, like proper tested mushrooms to Health Canada. We haven't had those conversations with them, by the way. I don't want to lead anybody to think that, but we can already say as a company, like we want to do things to help now. We don't want to wait. So we would even be in the process of helping funding. We could maybe at least fund our supply, because safe supply is a big buzzword these days. And we are proving that we have a safe supply, and isn't that great to know? Because people don't know what they're getting at fungi. They don't know what they're getting
Well,
at
my
shrooms.
kids are in Los Angeles. We talked about that. They're in school there, and they've called me and said, "Hey, Dad, we'd like to try some magic mushrooms." Said, "Not on your life, because I don't know where you're getting them from. If I know where you're getting them from, if you're getting them from Red Light and from a store where it's sanctioned, then okay, go give it a shot." But you're right, safe supply is a big deal, and that's why you guys have brought on Tony Clement, right, the former health minister. You've re-engaged him to be on your advisory board. That speaks volumes, Todd, about where you guys are going, how close you think you are. Because let's face it, you're not wasting time, you're not wasting money, you're not wasting energy by just bringing in Tony Clement for no reason to take a shot. Just take a shot in the dark. So what should investors be reading there? The fact that you're re-engaging Tony to come back onto the advisory board.
Yeah, first off, he's a mean guitar player, so that's why we brought him on. He's good at a campfire. No. Tony's a very interesting guy. He took a very hard stance as the Minister of Health in the day, against kind of these safe injection sites and stuff. And he didn't like the idea of supplying hard drugs, proven hard drugs that ultimately don't lead to very good things. And with again, being an evolved human being and growing and learning more and seeing data, he has a big passion for how can we help with the safe supply of psilocybin. How can we help others who are addicts? How can we help veterans, et cetera? So to have Tony, like, this was the Minister of Industry, the minister, like the Health Minister of Canada at the day. His right-hand man was Stephen Harper. He still does some fundraising efforts for the Conservative Pierre Poilievre's party, and he's still very connected. And he loves that this is a bipartisan issue. Helping people is a bipartisan issue. And again, not to speak on behalf of people, but I'll speak on my behalf here. This medical assisted, dying program that the Liberal government has out right now, is to me worrisome. If we can be helping human beings as opposed to opening up the door.
It's like we're giving up.
Yeah, why not help them before giving them, by the way, with tax dollars and things.
If George wants to euthanize himself, why not say, "Hey, George, why don't we microdose you here for 3 months? You want to do that for 3 months and see how it goes before you make that final fateful decision?" I mean, and by the way, you said you can't speak on behalf of Tony, but if you don't mind, I'm going to speak on behalf of Tony through his quote where he said, I mean, this says everything. "I feel strongly that greater access to psilocybin options under proper care and regulations can help Canadians suffering from trauma, PTSD, depression, and anxiety." Canadians of all political stripes can support more mental health options, which will alleviate the need for medical assistance in dying in some cases. So that's a pretty strong statement. That's not, hey, I'm happy to be involved with Todd again, and he's going to give me some stock options and pay me some money. So why the hell not? That's a real statement there to the world about how he feels about how helpful psilocybin can be to everybody.
I think a lot of people with age, when you're in the public eye, can get a bad rap at any point. George, you do probably at times, even with all your great interviews, and maybe you say the wrong thing. But again, back to that common theme. Literally everyone within my circle and everyone within their circles, they're not like getting older and wanting worse for younger generations. They're getting older and wanting better for generations. So I think younger generations and media outlets and things should stop judging people and should start listening to what they've learned and how they've changed their views. And how progressive of Tony, as a staunch conservative in the day, to think about how psilocybin can potentially be, that thing that bridges the gap of help. And I mean, I just love it. It's a lesson to me in humility. It's a lesson in let's all open up our hearts and our minds to change. And let's try to influence. And while he can't advocate specifically, there's strict laws around being a government official and when his advocacy runs out, which I think isn't until mid 2024. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that, but that's the case. But
the time, there's got to be that time delay in between, right?
We all just, we have a team of people, young, old, of all ethnicities, of all backgrounds, who just want to help people. And George, I loved what you said, that why not put someone on a 3-month program of psychedelics, with a therapist, and before you just go, yeah, it's okay, go die. Like, really? Like, what kind of world are we living in where we're not caring about human lives? Like, what has happened in this disconnected clown world, unfortunately, that we're allowing these kind of things? It just doesn't resonate with me. I'm sorry.
That's why, listen, going back to earlier when we were having that conversation, we weren't having the conversation just because we're having fun, talking about Elon Musk and all that. There's a real purpose to that, which is we need to establish some voices, not just one, not just yours, and then not just me supporting you, but maybe some Tony and some other people to really get out there and start talking, because that's the way you get the message out, especially in social media, right? Imagine that clip alone right there where you just said, Todd, if you said, hey, everybody, hey, Canadians, here's what I'm thinking. If George is thinking about euthanizing, why don't we give him 3-month microdosing cycle before that as make it mandatory, because it can't get any worse. He's willing to die tomorrow by euthanizing himself. So why not put him on a 3-month? By the way, I don't know how long a treatment cycle is. I'm saying 3 months, could be 3 weeks, but whatever that is. And imagine if that soundbite goes out there, Todd. That's why I'm talking about. We got to let Todd loose. Imagine that voice note goes out there, and people say, "Hold on, that guy's right. Yeah, he runs a company, and yeah, he wants to make money, but damn, that's a big humanitarian move right there. That I can support that." So I think we need to get your voice out there. I think we need to get other voice out there and talking loud, because if you leave it all up to bureaucrats, it could take a long time to grind through the political pork making machine that we all know exists all over the world.
And I sometimes do question, George, if it's not only just bureaucrats and government officials, but could it be big pharma that doesn't want to, not forget about unleashing Todd here, unleashing the power of what microdosing or heroic dosing can potentially do? Like, so maybe there's a concern on the big pharma side that the natural stuff can disrupt, the biggest business on the planet, which is scary in itself. Yeah. So it's challenging. It's stressful. I'm not saying I look over my shoulder every time I leave the house, but to have this big voice, I want people to know that, again, I can't make the medical claims, but go and read what you can read in terms of studies and what they're showing. And by the way, it's not even 3 months. It can be after one heroic dose that can change a person's life forever. It can be after a few weeks of microdosing. There's studies to show that psilocybin stays within the system, the way it connects to the 5-HTCA receptors, it breaks down your priors. It's a whole long-winded science stuff that I would leave for Sarah Shashka, as we call her, on our staff, to be able to explain to you what it's actually doing scientifically. But I just hope more people keep reading, more people keep learning, and more people keep seeing articles. And then of course I get the influx of the articles of all the stuff I already know about by people, friends and family meeting like, hey, Todd, did you know this? Yeah, of course. It's why I took a company public. And it's why we want to make a difference in this world.
Well, I saw a study, and I can't remember because it was a couple of years ago, but they're literally talking about they did a study on soldiers suffering from PTSD, and the results were miraculous, and they were in short order. I mean, 3 days, 10 days, 2 weeks, things like that. So, buddy, if the results are that strong and that great, then we got to advocate together on behalf of this for everybody. Not because we just want to make money off our stock, great, but man, can you imagine? Can you imagine one family saying George is about to pull the plug and he did this, and we're back, and that how fantastic would that be, buddy?
I think it would be fantastic. And just because I'm always careful, I know that there are some who choose that form of dying because of diseases that can't be cured, a quality of life, like say a Parkinson's, or like, I get it. I'm not saying people don't have that right to choose. What I'm saying is, why are we giving it for some of the mental health stuff that maybe we can fix? Sometimes there's things that are beyond mental. So, I don't want to seem insensitive to anyone whose family may have chosen that route and felt that it was the best position for them to be in. George, you're an interesting guy because you're like, you have a big heart. You can see that on your screen. I want to ask, like, I know you have kids and the bright kids and they're in colleges and they're moving forward with their lives, but I really worry also, I only have a 4 and 8-year-old. So sometimes they're oblivious to all the chaos going on in the world right now. Like, I'm really worried about this sort of, 18 to 30, 35-year-old generation. Like, they're growing up with seeing, I think, way too much. Like, are your kids doing okay? And like, have you heard of them talk about this psychedelic space at all, as opposed to, college parties where people are drinking booze, where they're using magic mushrooms instead? Anything like that?
Well, I got to tell you, my kids are really well put together, and yet they still have struggles sometimes with pressure issues, because now the days of when is me, Todd, and a couple of guys we're out somewhere having a couple of drinks, and then whatever we said or did kind of stays there. We go home and nobody remembers, or whatever the case is. Now it could be online tonight, and people are judging and all that. So they definitely live under more pressure, which is why they came to me and said, hey, just to take a little edge off, we've heard great things about magic mushrooms and psilocybin, and we like to do it. And I said no, only because I didn't know where the supply was coming from. But
I
yeah,
see.
man, more so in our day, we didn't really have that. And I don't think it's because we're insensitive. I'm sure some of that was maybe we weren't really looking out for it. So of course we progressed as a society. But I definitely think, as well put together as my kids are, look, they grew up in a traditional Greek home. Their rules regulate, they have fun, but their rules, the lines you just can't cross. So they understood all that, and yet they still struggle with some things sometimes. And I found, look, Todd, I'm going to tell you this. I found that as I've gotten older, look, I've had a lot of success and happy and good things happen, but even me, I'm struggling once in a while lately. I'm struggling a little bit with, what am I doing next? What am I really doing? Which is why I'm loving this conversation with you, because we're not just talking about balance sheet, income statement, margins, and margin growth and all that. We're talking about what can we do that's also real, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if you told me I could go get some of your product down the street, go into a microdose place, and I think I would do it, because I think I'm needing a little bit of help. So I think it's bigger than we think. I think it's a bigger issue than we think, where people can really use a little bit of help or maybe a lot of help.
That openness is starts a great conversation around, any sort of generation, any group of friends, any sort of person. And it's nice to see that candidness, because honestly, like, my dad's 80 years old. I probably lean on my dad for support. I have a great mom too. They're divorced, so I got to make that in case my mom watching. I can give her credit. So, mom, I love you too. But I love them both. But my dad in particular, like, as maybe a guy thing, because your mom's always there for you. Your mom always loves you unconditionally. It's the one, it's really the one lady in your life that will never not love you unconditionally. So, but with a father, it's like I can open up to him about trying to, in the day, I played sports, I was, on the radio, I tried to act, tough, whatever. No, with age, I laugh. I used to think I'd get more secure with things and more confident in this head, but now I'm nervous, I'm worried, like, and I'm worried for future generations. So it's taking its toll on me because
Isn't that right? We didn't expect that, right?
yeah,
I'm 54, you're 50, you're saying. So I would have thought, yeah, by now I'd be like rock solid,
yeah.
untouchable. And then, okay, look, I'm not complaining, but I do have some weaknesses and cracks where I'm thinking, like, why am I thinking this way? Why am I worried about this so much? And sometimes I don't get a handle on it, right? So
It's
it's great that
okay.
we're having this open look. Even here, we just
Yeah.
have an open car. Imagine how many people listen to this and saying, "Man, that's me too."
And by the way, beyond magic mushrooms and beyond investing and everything, if there are people struggling right now, like, call your friend, call your dad if your dad's around still, call, or maybe just put the computer away. And if you have a kid, just, go take him for wings, and you have maybe a pint of beer or something, just relax. Like, it is the living in the moment thing, I think, is the hardest thing that we've all gotten away from. And we're so fucking focused on our phones and the next thing we got to buy, and comparing ourselves to the Joneses, and watching the news that's just harsh, negative, mean, scrolling through Twitter, seeing a dead person with blood all over them like we're not supposed to see. It's like, we got to live in the moment and find the things that bring us happiness, but pick up the phone and call people. Back to my dad, it helps. Like, it actually helps. I'm microdosing my dad right now. No, but I mean, like, yeah, and it's nice to have support. So at the end of the day, George, like, we got to grind, we got to share these stories. And I don't know how you measure this, but it feels like people are more stressed than they've ever been. It really feels like that.
Well,
At
that's
least,
100%, buddy. That's 100%. Because I remember I talked to my parents about how they were like, and they're like, "Yeah, we worry about putting food on the table, but we really didn't worry about a lot of stuff. We all worry about so many extraneous things. You and I should be worrying about, hey, make sure I got some tuition money saved up for the kids, make sure they got some good food to eat, make sure they get some good experience. That's every parent time eternal. But now it seems like we're worrying about way more things as they're forced on us. So I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm a big believer in reversion to the mean, which is this stuff gets so extreme that humans as a collective, even though they don't mean to do it, but it just starts to happen, say, hey, you know what? Enough. I've had 5 years of, I've had 4 years of this going at 2020, 21, 22, now almost 23. That's 4 complete years where people start saying, hey, I want to do something better. I want to either turn off the news, or I want to vote for somebody that doesn't want terrible things to happen, and they start making changes. So I'm a big believer in reversion to the mean, and I hope as humans and a society that starts to happen. But hey, a little bit of help goes a long way in that, right? Because it
well,
takes a lot of resolve to do it on your own.
and to add that to that, on the cycle of sort of mushrooms, if you go back to like indigenous roots and all, like the tens of thousands of years of the substance being used, maybe that cycle is coming back into play too, where people start to really really put their head down and allow this to come back to the forefront, because when there was only a few things around in the day, that was one of the things you would have consumed. Like, you didn't have processed anything, you didn't have manufactured food of any kind. So we love the mushroom space as a whole, and we love the idea of continually to get this message out there about psychedelics, and the Netherlands is a place we're allowed to facilitate that legally, and we continue to do everything we can to grow revenues on the mushrooms. We didn't even talk about Wiz Khalifa. It's hilarious. And the home grow kits that are in like Loblaws, and they're in Canadian Tires, and they're in Longos, and
Amazon.
we have a lot of different products in different places, and we're growing the Mr. Cap brand right now. It's just sort of starting from where we think it can be. Mushrooms are kind of cool, and the mycelium network. We have a sign that's being made in one of our, maybe this is a good place for a long-winded guy like me to stop talking, George, but we have a sign being made in one of our smart shops, but it's really a wellness center in Utrecht, which is a beautiful town, a half an hour outside of Amsterdam. And it says, togetherness and stigmas, love the mycelium network. And the mycelium network is a beautiful thing. And that's what we want to do. We just want to be together. We want to end stigmas. And we think that mushrooms can be a big part of that. And it sounds corny maybe, or too emotional. And again,
Nope.
maybe not enough numbers in this talk, but we are reporting, I think November 29th is our next quarterly results that we'll put out. And you can go and review our last one. So that really speaks for itself. But man, this is awesome. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to say I think this took its own natural turn. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't like we had this. We had a general idea of what we want to talk about. Then we really got onto the human side. And you know what, Todd? I think investors want to see that. They don't always just want to hear about the numbers and the projections and all that. And I think this has been amazing. And I'm thankful that there are companies around like yours. I'm thankful that there are people around like you and all the team you have with you in the C-suite, your directors, your whole scientific team, everybody, to help be a small part of that machine that moves humanity forward. I mean that because I'm still an investor in the company, and I think one day I'm going to do okay with that. But at the same time, it'd be great to be a part of a great movement, and that's all thanks to you and your team, my friend.
Thank you. Well, sadly, one of my biggest motivators is proving people wrong. I say sadly because it's a lot of pressure. And when we took this company public, you supported us from the beginning, and I didn't want this thing just to go up and go down and get out and blow through your money. I wanted to carefully and patiently, like a tortoise and a hare. I wanted to be the tortoise at the end of the race, not the hare who's getting close to the finish line and then dies off. So that's our path. I mean, it's slow, patient growth. And we're really, 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 really doing everything in our power to create shareholder value and do it with the likes and minds of people like yourself who support the sector, but the belief in how we can help people. So thank you so much for having me.
I've been doing this for 26 years. I'm going to leave it with, I can tell when a company's moving in the right direction. I don't care if it's slow as long as they're doing it. And you really are, man. You really are. Everything you did in the Netherlands, then you made your way over to Canada. Now you've got these farm partnerships, and now I mean, that's exactly how it gets done. We all think that we want to be flash in the pan, Mark Zuckerberg, create a social media platform worth $1 billion, in a year. That's not reality. So thanks for being here. I think you're doing amazing stuff, and I can't wait to have you back one day, my friend.
Thank you. Really do appreciate it. Cheers.
Anybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening to my podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform, to Todd Shapiro. He's a CEO at Light Holland Corp, trades in Canada, TRIP, TRIP, for friends in the US, TRUFF, TRUFF. Great names, by the way, two great symbols, I got to tell you. If you want to know more about them, get to the company's website, do your due diligence, as Todd said, look through their deck, do some research online. You've got AI now, you've got Google, do all that. And if you like what you see, hopefully today you discovered your next great small cap company. Thanks for joining us. We hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun, and we'll see you next time.
Hey Small Cap fam, I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and Agora.com? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great Agora.com small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.